Hello and welcome to another edition of Spotlight on Education. I'm Dr. Jon Kopko, Superintendent of the East Brunswick Public Schools and also your host for the program. Today my very special guest is Mr. Robert Flood, who is our District Supervisor of Social Studies and Media Services. Bob, I'd like to welcome you to the show today, and we are going to speak a little bit about our new social studies curriculum, which is being implemented in grades 1 through 7. I'm wondering if you could tell our audience, first of all, why we initiated this new program.
Well, as you know, Dr. Kopko, the textbooks that we had been using for the past few years were almost 8 to 10 years old, and they presented a social studies approach that had become very popular since the Great Depression, known as the Expanding Horizons approach. This approach, though, lacked a historical perspective. Students would study about themselves and they would study about their neighborhoods and communities, but it was a very limiting discussion that usually focused on the here and now and had very little history to it. Diane Ravitch from Columbia University described it as something that was virtually content-free, and it was. The survey approach to history, which we used previously at grades 5 and 7 and 8, the problem there was that the surveys tend to be very repetitious and very superficial. A survey course in the 7th grade that we inherited back in '86 when we came into this position was a world history that covered everything from the beginning of time to modern times in 1 year with 7th graders. Very, very difficult to think that students would learn very much in depth. A lot of the previous social studies dealt with memorization of facts, a lot of literal recall, and not much critical thinking. So we not only needed some new textbooks, but a whole new revision to our social studies curriculum, and that's what we've just concluded this summer.
And what are some of the general characteristics of the new curriculum?
Well, first of all, it infuses a lot of historical subject matter. It puts some content and some teeth into the subject, some rich, exciting history. It also has a lot of literature to support the study of history. The other founding rock of the program is geography. And in addition to history, geography forms the organizing framework for our whole grades 1 through 7 history program or social studies program. The survey courses that I spoke about have now been replaced by in-depth presentations in grades 5 and 6 and 7. The new focus now is on concepts and thinking. There's some rich narrative, and we'll see in a few minutes there's some engaging visuals. Students are also involved in the use of a lot of primary source material. The primary sources are actual quotes of people throughout the historical time periods being studied. Another exciting thing about it is that social studies, once again, has some controversial issues. Some differing viewpoints are offered, instead of the rather bland approach that many of us experienced if we went to school from the 1950s up to the present. There's also a multicultural perspective throughout. It's a common thread throughout the program. Men and women of all races and classes and conditions are presented in our new materials.
Certainly sounds like a very, very comprehensive program, and I was hoping that we could talk about each of the grade levels, focus in on each of those grade levels, and perhaps we could begin with grades 1 and 2.
I brought some of the materials. For example, in the 1st grade, students use a book known as I Know a Place. This focuses on the students' immediate world and also the larger world as the program develops the concept of change over time. Some of the visuals in the new text deal with geography at the local scale, where students deal with the very basic classroom that they find themselves in, and then they also see this as an aerial view as they learn how to develop a map of their own immediate world or immediate environment. Later, students become accustomed to the concept of change. For example, they are given a series of visuals and some narrative that deal with a small town, and as you look at the visuals on the page, students will see that there are certain buildings, most of them in the early days in the 1800s are rather small, and some of the predominant buildings, such as the City Hall, actually dominate at the skyline. But as time goes on, students see that things change. The types of transportation, the dress of the people, the buildings themselves become somewhat taller, and as time wears on, some of the buildings are gone. However, some buildings remain, and those that remain are the buildings that tend to be government buildings, religious institutional buildings. Students finally see a future, or actually a very modern depiction of the same time period. And as they review the material, they learn some things change, some remain the same. In the first grade, students are given a lot of additional readings outside the textbook, and this holds true. It sets the tone for the years to follow. There's a whole bibliography of material that the teachers have at their hands. In the second grade, students study from a book called Some People I Know. This teaches children about people, not just people in their own lives, and not just people of today, but people who have made a difference to our world. An example of this comes with the depiction of some of the rich story, the rich narrative showing some of the immigrants to our country. Students also are engaged in a study of the Statue of Liberty. They learn the meaning of the Statue of Liberty and the people who have come through the port of New York who have emigrated to the United States. Students also learn not just the construction of the statue, but its deeper meaning. In addition, the new program offers students some rich biographies, whether it be Eleanor Roosevelt, Roberto Clemente. They learn about famous Americans. So we now have some rich history and rich biography at the earliest years. Here we see a graphic depicting Thomas Edison as part of his biography.
Let's go on now to grade 3, Bob, if we could.
Yeah. In the third grade, students study the American land. They study the United States. They study the land in a historical perspective, and they also study it in a modern time period. One of the engaging things that our new program offers are some engaging visuals. Here we see a photograph from the 1800s depicting an Indian village, and over here we see the construction of some Indian housing, also from the 1800s. But the book also brings students up to date. For example, that same area, students get a present-day perspective as they look at the type of farming, the circular irrigation farming of that same land area. So they see history in the making. They see things as they were and things as they are today.
What about the fourth grade?
Fourth grade is traditional in the sense that students study the 5 geographic regions of the United States. In This Is My Country, students, though, get a very good economic perspective. Once again, it's historically based. Students will see the economy of years ago, and they'll also see the economy of the present time period. They'll learn, for example, how in our recent past, perhaps some of their own ancestors were engaged in work as young school children, just like themselves. And instead of having the opportunity to come to school, they had to go to work. But they also see how things have changed, and that whether it be the 49ers, the famous miners of California, or whether it be something closer to New Jersey, students are given a series of graphics and information. A Minipedia here at the end of the textbook depicts all of the basic information that students would need to know. Instead of memorizing all of the facts about the various states, they learned how to use those resources, and they engage in rich narrative and good visuals to get them really excited about the past.
I understand we have a tape on that fourth grade, which we're going to have an opportunity to see in just a few moments. Could you tell us a little bit about what we're going to be able to view?
Yeah, we're going to see a class taught by Ellen Stein of Warnsdorfer Elementary School. Ellen has put together a class using all of the new materials that uses geography. We'll see the students using large desk maps that are from the Nystrom Map and Globe program, and these include some, they're very tactile oriented because they have a raised relief. The mountains actually reach right off the maps themselves. And she's going to present students with a journey from one part of our country to the other as they study landforms of the United States. They'll learn about the deserts and the mountains And Ellen has done really a fine job, and she's got an excellent class of students here for us to see.
Great. Let's take a look at that tape now.
Okay.
When we started to learn about the United States, we said that it stretched from sea to shining sea. What were those two seas that we talked about? Andrew?
The Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean.
Good. Is the whole United States confined between the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean? Do you see the whole United States here, Frank?
Yes.
There's nothing missing? How many states are there in the United States? Do you see all 50 states between here and here? Do you see Alaska and Hawaii?
No.
No. So do you see all 50? No, you don't see all 50. Okay, these are called the continental United States, the 48 states that are joined together. And what government is the government of every state in the United States? What's the name of that government, Catherine?
Federal government?
Very good. Okay, who's the head of our federal government? David? What's his name? Very, very good. All right, so we're one country united under one government. I want you to open up your books to page 8. And on page 8, you're going to see a poem that was set to music by a very famous folk singer named Woody Guthrie. And this poem and song is something that's very familiar to you. And Woody Guthrie talks about how the land and the water of our United States joined together to make this perfect country. And he loved this country very, very much, and he went around the United States singing about this country. I'm going to play the song for you, but I don't want you to sing it this time. We'll have time to sing it later on. I really want you to look at the words of Woody Guthrie's song. Okay, besides talking about how much he loved this country, Woody Guthrie talked about the landforms of the United States. A landform is a feature of the earth. It's the shape of the land, such as a desert, a mountain, a river, and a plain. Those are only 4 of the many kinds of landforms we have in the United States. I want you to look at your maps, and I want you to run your hands along the landscape of the United States. Just take your hands and run it across your map, across the landscape of the United States. What do you notice? What do you notice about the landscape of the United States? Randy? It's raised. Good. Is it raised all over?
No.
No. So what do we have? What do we notice about our country? Andrew?
In the west, it has mountains. In
Right.
the east, it only has a little mountains, and it's more plain land. And in the middle, it has no mountains
Okay, so what is it in the middle? It's what?
and plains.
All right, so what happens, though, to the map in the middle? It's what?
Flat.
It's flat. Okay. Look at my map. Is my map raised like your maps? Do I have the bumps and the highs and the lows, Michael?
No.
No, I don't. But how do you know on my map where the highs and the lows are? How could I know if I don't have a map like you? Joe?
The colors of it.
Very good. By the colors of the map, that would tell me where my highs and lows are. So you're going to use your raised maps, and I'm going to use my flat map. Today we're going to go on a trip, a make-believe trip across the United States. And we're going to start here in Los Angeles. We're going to pretend that we're not at Warnsdorfer School in East Brunswick, but we're way out here in California. I want you to go down your coast of California look in the blue of the Pacific Ocean and find the name Los Angeles and circle it. Circle that name of that city. All right, we're going to go across the map from Los Angeles, way up here in Massachusetts, and our trip is going to end in the city of Boston. So let's look up here in the Atlantic where the name Boston would appear, and circle Boston on your map. Okay, let's pretend we're on our airplanes. Fasten your seatbelts, and we're ready. Take your finger, because that's what's going to be your plane, and let's start at Los Angeles Airport. We're going to go over those little hills of California. See how your finger rises? And what's the first landform that you're going to come to? The very first landform as you go over those hills of California. Michelle?
Yes, sir.
Very good. The Mojave Desert. What would you expect the land?
We're also very fortunate to have a tape of another one of our classes. This class is being taught by Marianne Servino. It's a 5th grade class at Central School. And Bob, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about the curriculum in the 5th grade as well.
Yeah, in 5th grade, students use a textbook known as America Will Be. It's really an early American history and provides a chronological approach. It's an in-depth study of the early time period of United States history. Students study American history from the early beginnings up to and including the American Civil War. As you can see, some of the pictorials are from the time period. The cameras, which came out in the early 1840s, here we see a picture from 1862 showing plantation life in the South, and you get some impression as to what Southern plantation life was really like when you see some of the workers there. Also, one of the great gifts that we have included in our textbook series are some of the literature pieces. Here, for example, we have a story about fugitive slaves escaping from the South. But throughout the textbook series from grades 1 through 7, there's some rich literature built directly into the textbook series. The one that we're going to see right now, the video about the 5th grade, deals with the topic of pluralism. And it's very interesting. The New York Times, just this past weekend, had an article in their New York Times magazine about this textbook series, and it focused on something that we're about to see just by coincidence in Marianne Servino's class, which was taped at Central School. Marianne will deal with the topic of pluralism, and she's also going to use the food of bread as a way to talk about such things as prejudice and how people can sometimes prejudge things before they've even tasted them or before they've had a chance to appreciate them.
Good. Let's take a look at that tape right now.
Yesterday we were talking about, on Friday we were talking about many different cultures, and today we're going to continue the idea of cultures. Does anybody remember what cultures mean? The word cultures, what does it mean? Nina?
Beliefs, religions, languages, and like food.
Okay, of a particular group of people. Okay, very good. Do you have something to add to that, Brian? Yes, Brian.
It's a way of life.
It's a way of life, true. And it's also passed down from what? Anthony?
Generation to generation.
Generation to generation. Very, very good. Okay, when we look at cultures, we're also looking at part of beliefs, attitudes from different peoples. One thing we're looking at is pluralism. What do you think is a smaller word in this large word? Kimmy?
Plural.
Plural. What does that mean to you?
More than one.
More than one. So pluralism would mean what to you as a person? Kimmy?
More than one country.
More than one country? That's a part of it. That's a part of it. Can you add to that, Jeffrey, and help Kimmy?
More than one, believe more than one culture, or more than one, let's call it, person's beliefs or religions.
Okay, all right. Anthony?
Maybe different kinds of foods.
Different kinds of foods could be a part of it. In pluralism, we're looking at many different cultures living together in a plural, the term is pluralistic society. Sometimes within this society we have both benefits and challenges. What might be some benefits to learning about different cultures if we were working with Minoshi?
We can share like music, food, clothing, and the big thing is languages.
Languages, okay. Can somebody add to what Minoshi's saying? All right, can we say something about something that Anthony said before about customs? Could a benefit be customs? All right, those are some of the examples. What might be some of the challenges that we might face from this type of society? Jeffrey?
The crossing of country to country or over sea crossing.
That could be a piece of it. Brian?
Learning the different languages.
Learning the different languages is very good. Minoshi?
Prejudice.
Prejudice. What do you mean by that, honey?
Because some people say that, why do you do this? This is so silly, but it's something you believe in. I mean, like, somebody could say that and they don't even know what it's about or what they're doing.
Let's look at the idea of prejudice. One way of looking at prejudice might be looking at one thing, foods. Certain types of foods we automatically say a negative thing towards. Today, we're going to use bread as an example of that. And Lori was kind enough to label all the different types of bread on the back table, and I wrote all the word names on the front board for us. These are only 15 samples of the different types of breads. And we're going to have an opportunity to look at some of them. On an index card, you're going to have and take and divide into 3 columns. Breads you've liked, breads you've never tried and might like to try, breads you've never tried and would not like to try. What do you think shows prejudice? Greenie.
You never tried and don't want to try.
Okay. Why do you think so, honey?
Because you were thinking because of the color.
Because of the color, okay.
Or what it's made of.
What it's made of, all right. Jenna?
Maybe where it's from, they don't like.
Right, where it's from might be another factor, all right. Kristen?
Smell.
Smell. Okay, Mike?
The people who make it.
The people who make it. Jeffrey?
The color of it.
The color of it, okay. Brian?
They're not giving it a chance.
Okay, that's also true. Anthony?
The way it looks, maybe like some look like all like bumpy and everything. That look good.
Okay, at this time, we're going to start looking at the different types of bread, and Matt's going to be giving everybody the index card to write down breads they like, breads they've never tried and might try, breads they've never
Well, that concludes the elementary segment of the curriculum. What happens when the students enter Hammarskjöld School?
In the 6th and 7th grade, students study world history. The teachers have a number of supplements, including such things as a writing journal for students. They have a study guide and a map activity booklet that include a series of extra activities to help enrich the program. In grade 6, students study the ancient world from the beginnings of time up to the early and the classical civilizations, and then they go on to the decline of the Roman Empire. They use a textbook entitled A Message of Ancient Days. Among the exciting things in this particular text are the comparison between some of the visuals, the photographs. This photograph shows a modern eruption of Mount Vesuvius, and students are also introduced to some of the classical art And here's a depiction of the eruption of Vesuvius approximately 2,000 years ago. Students also have an opportunity here to study so many great civilizations of the ancient world, including the Egyptian civilization. And once again, we see some of the graphics, the great visuals this program affords, showing the inside of an Egyptian pyramid. Most of the pages in the text, in addition to some good narrative, include a number of exciting visuals. In the 7th grade, students use a textbook entitled Across the Centuries. Across the Centuries picks up where the 6th grade left off, that is, with the fall of Rome, and then they move on through the Middle Ages and they go up to early modern times. They study the growth of civilizations throughout the world, including civilizations in Japan and in Africa and in the Americas. Some of the visuals here, you can see students have heard a lot about caravans and about early transportation. In a moment of time, a series that goes through the entire curriculum, students are given an accurate depiction of a camel and exactly what a camel would travel with as they cross the desert, conducting and being used for trade. Also, some of the early maps of the 1400s depicted towns and cities as they actually looked, frequently not using symbols, but someone actually trying to get a bird's eye view of a town to show what it would look like in a map. Geography being a major thrust of the program, students are given all of the support that they need through our maps and our globes and the atlas that's at the back of each textbook. The program, as I stated before, encompasses so much more history and geography. It's an exciting program, and some of the parents that have seen it wish they could go back to school and see these materials again.
Well, Bob, needless to say, I'm extremely impressed with the program. And I think it's the type of curriculum that is going to make our students even more informed in both history and geography. And I want to compliment you and your entire social studies department for the excellent work that they have done here. And I'd also like to thank you today for being here with us, for showcasing the program to the audience. And I'd also like to thank the audience for watching, and hope you'll be with us again next month on Spotlight on Education.